Now, this is the seventh day for my recording learning English. What do you think? My daughter asked me, why do you do that? Does it help? Yes, it helps me. Why? If I learned, if I learned, uh, you know, not recording, I won't read. I can read 1 hour or over 1 hour. But if I'm not recording, I'm not reading. Sometimes I read, but I can't last that long. But recording, I said I will read. Then I read. I read the whole time. And even when I check the dictionary for words, I read. And I am so happy I'm doing it. It's for me. If you like the method to learn languages, you can do it, no matter what languages. Mm, Chinese, English, Japanese, or whatever. Yeah, let's begin this for today. Oh, it's raining outside. Oh, today my dog can't go out. Okay, let's begin. This is the diamond mines. Not very long after this very exciting thing happened. Not only Sarah, but the entire school found it exciting and made subject of conversation for weeks after it occurred. In one of in one of his letters, Captain Carew told a most interesting story. A friend a friend who had been at school with him when he was a boy had unexpectedly come to see him in India. He was the owner of a large tract of land. Large, I think it's about quar. Oh, tract, a large tract, 大片土地，小册子，长时间，大片土地还有小册子。A large tract. A large tract of land. A large tract of land upon which diamond had been found, and he was engaged in developing the mines. If all went as was confidently expected, he would become possessed of such wealth as it made one dizzy of think. If all went as was if if all went as was confidently expected, he would become possessed of such wealth made one dizzy to think of. And because he was fond of the friend of his school days, he had given him an opportunity to share in this enormous fortune by becoming a partner in his scheme. If all went as went as expected, he would become possessed of such wealth as it made one dizzy to think of, and because he was fond of the friend of his school days, he had given him an opportunity to share in this enormous fortune. enormous fortune. Enormous
fortune, fortune,
fortune. Enormous fortune by becoming a partner in his scheme. This, at least, was what Sarah gathered from his letter. It's true that any other business scheme, however magnificent, would have had but small attraction for her or for the schoolroom. But Diamond Mine sounded so like the Arabian Nights that no one could be indifferent. Sarah thought them enchanting, and painted pictures for for Ermengarde and Lottie of Lady of Labyrinth passage. Laby, labyrinth,
labyrinthine,
labyrinth,
labyrinthine, labyrinthine,
labyrinthine, labyrinthine, labyrinthine passages of labyrinthine passage, labyrinthine passages, labyrinthine passages in the labyrinthine 迷宫似的 passages， 通道。Yes, this is 通道。通道。For Ermengarde and Lottie of labyrinthine passages in the bowl of the earth. In the bowl, 肠内部 in the bowls of the内部 in the bowls of the earth. In the bowls of the earth, where sparkling stones studded the walls. Stud 饰纽，衣服上的饰纽，大头钉。Studded 像大头钉一样，布满装饰。Where 布满颗粒。Studded 镶嵌。镶嵌。Where sparkling stones studded the walls and roofs and ceilings, and strange dark men dug them out with heavy picks. This like, you see, this like dislike. I think you watch 我白雪公主。So here. Where sparkling stone studded the walls and roofs and ceilings, and strange dark men dug them out with heavy picks. Emma got delighted in the story, and Lottie insisted on its being retold to her every evening. Lavinia was very pitiful about it and told Jessie that she didn't believe such thing as diamond mine existed. My mom had a diamond ring which cost 40 pounds, she said, and it's not a big one either. If there were mines full of diamonds, people would be so rich it would be ridiculous. Perhaps Sarah will be so rich that she will be ridiculous, gurgled Jessie. She's ridiculous without being rich, Lavinia sniffed. I believe you hate her, said Jessie. No, I don't, snapped Lavinia. But I don't believe in mines full of diamonds. Well, people have to get them from somewhere, and Lavinia, with a new jiggle. What do you think Gertrude says? I don't know. I'm sure. And I don't care if it's something more about the everlasting Sarah. Everlasting. Everlasting.哦 everlasting 可以是永恒的，也可以是诗人言翻译。
everlasting,
everlasting everlasting Sarah. Well, it is. One of her pride is that she is a princess. She plays it all the time, even in school. She says it makes her learn her lessons better. She wants Ermengarde to be one too, but Ermengarde says she's too fat. She is too fat, said Lavinia, and Sarah is too thin. Naturally, Jessie giggled again. Jiggle or giggle? Jiggle.
giggle, giggle,
Giggle or jiggle?
giggle,
Giggle.
giggle,
Giggle.
giggle, giggle,
Giggled again. She says it has nothing to do with what you look like or what you have. It has only to do with what you think of and what you do. I suppose she thinks she could be a princess if she was a beggar, said Lavinia. Let's begin to call her your Roy. Lessons for the day were over, and they were sitting before the schoolroom fire, enjoying the time they liked best. It was the time when Miss Minchin and Miss Amelia were taking their tea in the sitting room, scarce um, sacred, um, sac- sacred. 神圣. Oh, this really secret.
sacred,
Secret. Secret. 神圣的. In the sitting room, secret to themselves. At this hour, a great deal of talking was done, and a great many secrets changed hands, particularly if the young people behaved themselves well, and did not squabble or run about noisily. Squabble,
squabble,
squabble, squabble. Did not squabble or run about run about noisily, which it must be confessed they usually did. It must be which it must be confessed they usually did. When they made an uproar, the older girls when they made an uproar, the older girls usually interfered with scolding and shaking. They were expected to keep order, and there was danger if they did not. Miss Minchin or Miss Amelia would appear and put an end to festivity. Oh, festival.
festivity,
Festivity. I guess it should be this, but I need to make it sure. 观念 put an end to festivity, would appear and put an end to festivity. Even as Lavinia spoke, the door opened and Sarah entered with Lottie, whose habit was to trot everywhere after her like a dog, was to trot everywhere after her like a little dog. There she is, with that horrid child. There she is, with that horrid child, exclaimed Lavinia in a whisper. If she's so fond of her, why doesn't she keep her in her own room? She will begin howling about something in 5 minutes. It happened that Lottie had been seized with a sudden desire to play in the schoolroom. It happened that Lottie had been seized with a sudden desire to play in the schoolroom, and had begged her adopted parent to come with her. She joined a group of little ones who were playing in the corner. Sarah curled herself up in the window seat, opened a book, and began to read. It was a book about the French Revolution, and she was soon lost in a harrowing picture of the prisoner in the Bastille man who had spent so many years in dungeons that when they were dragged out by those who rescued them. Ooh, dungeon,
dungeon,
dungeons. Men who had spent who had spent so many years in dungeons that when they were dragged out by those who rescued them, their long grey almost hid their faces, and they had forgotten that an outside world existed at all, and were like beings in a uh, and were like beings in a dream. She was so far away from the schoolroom that it was not agreeable to be dragged back suddenly by a howl from Lottie. Never did she from losing her temper when she was suddenly disturbed while absorbed in a book. People who are fond of books know the feeling of irritation which swept over them at such a moment. The temptation to be unreasonable and snappish is one not easy to manage. It made me feel as if someone had hit me, Sarah had told Emma, um, and as if I won't hit back, I have to keep from saying something ill-tempered. From ill-tempered, she had to remember things quickly when she laid her book on the window seat and jumped down from her comfortable corner. Lottie had been sliding across the schoolroom floor, and having first irritated Lavinia and Jessie by making a noise, had falling down and hurting her fat knee. She was screaming and dancing up and down in the midst of a group of friends and enemies who were alternately who were alternately cooks. Why you always say that 找不到该内容，然后每一次都在 cooks
coax,
home who were alternately cooks and scolding her. Cooks, cooks, alternately cooks and scolding her. Stop this minute. Stop this minute, you crybaby. Stop this minute, Lavinia commanded. I'm not a crybaby. I'm not, wailed Lottie. Sarah. If she doesn't stop, Miss Minchin will hear her, cried Jessie. Lottie, darling, I will give you a penny. I don't want your penny, sobbed Lottie, and she looked down at the fat knee, and seeing a drop of blood on it, burst forth again. Sarah flew across the room and kneeling down, put her arms round her. Now, Lottie, she said. Now, Lottie, you promised Sarah. She said. She said I was a crybaby, wept Lottie. Sarah pat her, but spoke in the steady voice Lottie knew. But if you cry, you will be one, Lottie pat. You promised. Lottie remembered that she had promised, but she pretended to lift her to lift up her voice. Mama, she proclaimed. She she proclaimed. I haven't a bit of mama. 宣告。Yes, you have, said Sarah cheerfully. Have you forgotten? Don't you know that Sarah is your mama? Don't you want Sarah for your mama? Lottie cuddled up to her with a consoled sniff. Cuddled up to her. Lottie cuddled up to her with a consoled sniff. Come and sit in the window seat with me, Sarah went on, and I will whisper a story to you. Will you? Whispered. Will you tell me about the diamond mines? The diamond mines, broke out Lavinia. Nasty little spoiled things. I should like to slap her. Sarah got up quickly on her knee. It must be remembered that she had been very deeply absorbed in the book about the Bastille, and she had had to recall several things rapidly when she realized that she must go and take care of her adopted child. She was not an angel, and she was not fond of Lavinia. Well, she said, with some like to slap you, but I don't want to slap you. Restrained herself. Restrain. 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 Oh. Restrain her. Restrain.
restrain,
Restrain herself. At least, I both want to slap you, and I should like to slap you, but I won't. Not little gutter children. We are both old enough to know better.
gutter,
Gutter. 贫民窟的。哦，贫民窟的。We are not little gutter children. We are both old enough to know better. Here was Lavinia's opportunity. Ha, yes, Your Royal Highness, she said. We are princesses, I believe. At least one of us is. The school ought to be very fashionable now. Miss Minchin has a princess for a pupil. Sarah stared toward her. She looked as if she were going to box her ear. Perhaps she was. Her trick of pretending things was the joy of her life. She never spoke of it to girls she was not fond of. Her new pretend about being a princess was very near to her heart, and she was shy and sensitive about it. She had meant it to be rather a secret, and here was Lavinia, the reading, the writing, the read,
deride,
they read, they. That is Lavinia. Lavinia deriding it before nearly all the school. She felt the blood rush up into her face and tingle in her ears. She only just saved herself if you were a princess. If you were, she only just saved herself. If you were a princess, you did not fly into rages. He only just saved herself. If you were a princess, you did not fly into rages. Her hand dropped. Her hand, her hand dropped, and she stood quite still a moment. When she quiet, steady voice, she held her head up, and everybody listened to her. It's true, she said. Sometimes I do pretend I am a princess. I pretend I am a princess so that I can try and behave like one. Lavinia could not think of exactly the right thing to say. Several times she had found that she could not think of a satisfactory reply when she was dealing with Sarah. The reason for this was that somehow the rest always seemed to be vaguely in sympathy with her opponent. Vaguely. Is it vaguely? Vaguely. Yes, vaguely. Vaguely seemed to be vaguely in sympathy with her opponent. Be vaguely the rest the rest seemed to be vaguely in the rest always seemed to be vaguely in sympathy with her opponent. She saw now that they were pricking up their ear interestedly. Interested. Prick. Prick up.支棱起来. They were
prick,
prick up their ear, prick up their ear interestedly. The truth was, they liked princesses, and they all hoped they might hear something more definite and drew nearer Sarah accordingly. Lavinia could only invent one remark, and it fell rather flat. Dear me, she said, I hope when you ascend the throne, you won't forget us. Ascend,
ascend,
ascend. 继承. When you ascend the throne, you won't forget us. I won't, said Sarah, and she did not utter another word, but stood quite still and stared at her steadily as she saw her take Jessie's arm and turn away. After this, the girls who were jealous of her used to speak of her as Princess Sarah whenever they wished to be particularly disdainful. Disdainful. At this time, the girls who were jealous of her After this, the girls who were jealous of her used to speak of her as Princess Sarah. Whenever they wished to be particularly disdainful, and those they wished to be particularly disdainful, and those who were fond of her gave her doves as a term of affection. No one called her princess instead of Sarah, but her her adorers, picture queens of the title. Picture queen. Yeah. Queens. Picturesque. Picturesque.
Picturesque.
Picturesque. Picturesqueness. 美丽的。Picturesqueness. 栩栩如生的。Picturesque. Picturesque and the grandeur of the title.
Grandeur.
伟大的、宏伟的、壮观的、富丽堂皇。Grandeur of the title, and Miss Minchin, hearing of it, mentioned it more than once to visiting parents, feeling that it rather suggested a sort of a royal boarding school. To Becky, it seemed the most appropriate thing in the world. The acquaintance began on the foggy afternoon when she had jumped up terrified in the comfortable chair, had ripened and grown. Though it must be confessed that Miss Minchin and Miss Amelia knew very little about it. They were aware that Sarah was kind to the scullery maid, but they knew nothing of certain delightful moments snatched perilously. Perry. Perilously. Knew nothing of certain delightful moments snatched perilously when, the upstairs room being set in order, with lightning rapidly. Sarah's sitting room was reached, and the heavy coal box sat down with a sigh of joy. At such times, stories were told by installment. Installment 哦，分期的 installment
installment,
Okay. They were aware that Sarah was kind to scullery maid. Certain delightful moment snatched purposely when the upstairs rooms being set in order with lightning rapidity.